And I remember he was like standing in the middle of the pool, which was kind of shallow. And he was just like having this moment. And he was like, yeah, like there just needs to be a store for men, you know, where you can have interesting materials and you can get excited about a wedding ring, you know, like it could be called, I don't know, like manly bands, you know, and it was this beautiful moment. His hands were like up like this in the pool. And it was so cool. I was like, whatever, you're so silly. Fine. Start a business.
Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce.
All right, here we go. Welcome back. Michelle Lucchese, Manly Bands, co-founder and CEO. I noticed on your LinkedIn that you didn't start as the CEO. You were still a co-founder, but you were like the COO.
Yes. Yes.
And you started it with your husband, Jonathan Ruggiero. So how did you get the promotion? Like what qualified you to go from COO to CEO? And who was the CEO prior to you being the CEO?
Sure. So John was our CEO for the first couple years. And then the CEO role became quite big. And operations was more than just operations. I was over products. I was over HR. And it just started to make more sense to split the role. So right now we're co-CEOs. And so John is over marketing, technology, and finance. And I'm over operations, which is our shop, our warehouse, our customer service, HR, products. I think that's it. Yeah. So we really like split and divide, you know, one, so the home life is nice. And two, because it's a big job. I feel for CEOs because it is a really large responsibility.
Well, it's an interesting concept actually, because I always talk about how powerful teamwork is to me in my own work life. Like I have a role, but I'm always trying to put other people beside me. I think it just makes it a more powerful message, presentation to have someone next to you in the room. But there is also this thing of like, well, I'm the CEO. You know, there's... So I wonder if that maybe you're starting a new trend, like co-CEO, teamwork. Could well, you know, teamwork makes the dream work. I know. It's so cliche. Please edit that out. I'm so embarrassed that I did that. Oh man. I did that only because of I know of your background and maybe let's start there.
Sure.
You were in the entertainment industry.
I was.
Was that your dream growing up?
That was my dream, yeah.
Where did you develop this? Do you have parents?
Yes.
Who were...
Yes.
And you have a great sense of humor. Right? That's one of the things. If you visit the Manly Band's website, it's not like in your face, but there's this sense of humor throughout the website, especially on like the frequently asked questions. Good stuff there.
Thanks.
Okay, so were your parents in the entertainment industry?
My mom was an actor in high school and always wanted to do that for her life, but it was a different time. You know, her dad was like, okay, if you want to go to college, maybe we'll think about that, but you have to do like something that's gonna, you know, end up helping you in life. And so she got a home ec degree, which I'm not really sure how that was going to help her like in life, but she did become an interior designer and, do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, she was super supportive, you know, when I showed interest, but she wasn't really pushing it, which was really nice, you know. But I just, as a kid, like, you know, 2-3 years old, started singing. And my parents would listen to the Carpenters and Barry Manilow. And so that was my jam. And so my voice growing up is it's very clean, very easy listening. But then when I, you know, was in my 20s, I wanted to be like in a rock and roll band. And I was like, I don't have the voice for this, you know. I have like a musical theater / easy listening voice. I need to be real with myself. So
self-awareness.
Yes, it's big. It's big. So yeah, I ended up getting into music in my 20s and writing funny songs because the way I deal with life and life's problems is to make, you know, light of it. And comedy was my big thing. And so I was like, great, I'm going to put these two loves together. And I had a crazy girl band called Spitfire, and we wrote these silly songs.
Yes, and those silly songs are available online.
Oh, no.
Yes, I've witnessed those.
Oh, no.
They're very entertaining.
Thank you.
Yeah, very entertaining. And it's interesting because, you know, you think of a silly song, and then you think, well, maybe these performers don't really have... Their talent is performing silly songs.
Right.
But you actually have real talent.
Oh, thank you.
Like you do have like a nice, easy listening voice. Like you could translate that into more serious songs, and
Thanks.
it would really play. So good for you.
Thank you.
Tell me about your pursuit of that dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you want to be an actor, you want to be in Hollywood, you want to be making music.
Yeah.
Tell us about that pursuit.
Yeah, so I was 10 years old when I met this girl in my class. We had just moved to Atlanta, and so I was the new kid in the class and super shy. And this girl I just happened to sit next to the first day was an actress. Her name was Joanna, and she was doing professional theater and professional commercials, and I just thought that was the
10 years
coolest
old?
thing. At 10 years old, yeah. Isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I befriended her, and the school play came up, and I beat her out for the lead in the school play, which was not okay in our friendship, but also, you know, a turning point in my life. And I was like, oh, wow, I guess I'm decent at this. And so I just kept going with it, and you know, kept doing school plays and musicals outside of school and all kinds of stuff. Pursued, you know, a theater degree. I went to a school in Ohio for a couple of years, you know, studying theater. And I was like, what am I doing in Ohio trying to be an actress? But I had a great college experience there. It was awesome. Ended up transferring to NYU, and that was like the creme de la creme. You know, you want to be an actor, go to NYU, go to Carnegie Mellon, go to the big schools. You know, I hadn't done that at first. And I think I wasn't ready, so it wasn't a bad decision, and I met amazing people at Miami that have been like huge in my adulthood too for me. So anyway, NYU was fantastic because I was able to audition for professional things while I was in school. And so I started that whole career, ended up getting a movie that went to Sundance, so, you know, right up the street from here in Utah. And that was an incredible experience, you know, being able to just be part of that scene. And, you know, that was another turning point. Wow, this is real, you know. Ended up getting an agent that took me out to LA. And so then you're pounding the pavement in LA, which is very different from pounding the pavement in New York. It's really a lot harder to get in LA, and I hadn't realized that. So, you know, you land in LA and you know, have these delusions of grandeur of like, oh, it's going to take me maybe a year, maybe two. And 10 years in, I was still pounding the pavement, trying really hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so were you working in the industry this whole time? And
Yeah, I was. I did all kinds of stuff. I produced, I wrote, I wrote music for other people. I did all kinds of stuff. I also had day jobs. You know, I was a waiter, that typical like waiter actress thing.
Yes.
And I served a lot of famous people, and that was really interesting. And then I ended up working in investment banking for a hot minute. And actually, that ended up preparing me for what happened ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
in
it's
your,
random.
in your background, but now that seems to make sense because we had a guest on here previously, Scott Huntsman, and his advice. He's a guy he finds businesses that are struggling. He purchases them or puts together a team and then builds them and whatever. But he spent several years on Wall Street in finance.
That's helpful.
And he said that was the best advice he could give is to spend 2 years on Wall Street, and that will prepare you for lots of different things. So now, this experience in investment banking really translates over to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people think, well, she was an actor and a singer, and now she's running a company. Where's how do you do that? Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, do you have a good story about serving someone famous when you were in the restaurant industry?
So I know Amanda Bynes has come under some scrutiny over the last several years.
Yes,
she was beautiful and innocent and
talented.
Amazing. And she was one of the first people that I served in that was, super famous. And she was kind and amazing, and she was paying for her parents. And I remember that being such a moment for me because I was so broke, and I was like, yes, you're paying for dinner for your parents. That's amazing. I want to be able to do that. And I was really inspired by her in that moment, So yeah, Amanda Bynes will always have a soft place in my heart,
That's a great story.
Thanks.
I mean, without going too far into that, it feels bad that she's kind of fallen on these funny times. Okay, so you're in this decade-long struggle in LA, trying to figure it out, not making a lot of money, getting by. And I understand that you moved all over the place. You hit several areas around where I grew up in Culver City, which was great. And I have to ask you if you ever went to Tito's Tacos.
I never did go to Tito's Tacos.
Man, it's the best.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's heard of it.
Huh.
And the next time you're in LA, you better hit
done.
Tito's. Tito's Tacos. Okay. In this time period, are you single?
Yeah.
Or
a part of it. Part of it, I was single when I was super struggling. And John was working for a company called Getty Images. They do a lot of celebrity coverage.
Oh my gosh. If you look at any photo anywhere, it always says Getty Images. Okay.
Yeah.
What was he doing at Getty Images?
Yeah. So John was, his title was like supervising producer there. And so he was in charge of all the film festival coverage and award show coverage. And so they would go in, to the Oscars, and he would handle the entire Vanity Fair party and produce all of the shoots there. They do little side interviews and just kind of coverage of celebrities. And it was great because what would happen is that footage would end up on the Getty website, and then news media would come and buy the footage and then use it. So it was cool because every now and again we'd be watching the news and he'd be like, oh, so-and-so shot that, or I shot that, or it was really neat.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jonathan wanted to be in the entertainment industry as well.
Yeah.
Did he want to be behind the camera?
Yeah.
In front? Okay, so he wanted to be on the other side of the camera. Okay.
So he also started as an actor and a singer.
So you like all the attention, and he...
He likes to be in the background.
Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, but it sounded like in Jonathan's life experience... He had kind of this entrepreneurial spirit. Is that true?
It's so true. He always just was figuring little things out. He started, I think his first company he started in his 20s. It was called Actor Space, and it was kind of like a MySpace for actors, like to put up their information and headshots and whatnot.
Yes.
And then after we got together, he started a whole bunch of other ones, that were, what was that called? Actor Rated. That was kind of like a Yelp for everything actor. And that was amazing. It was really helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he worked so hard, pushing and making that happen. He did free workshops and all kinds of cool stuff for actors. Yeah.
There was another one that he started, was a site for independent films.
Yes, Film Screener.
Yeah.
We were together when that happened too. And that was a platform for short films. Because short films, it's hard really for them to get a day in the sun. And so it was a platform to let people, buy a viewing, essentially rent your short film. And so you get to make some money back because you really don't make money in short films. So
Gotcha.
It's like a showcase platform. Yeah.
Okay. And so it feels like as you're talking about this and he's trying to start all of these different companies and it sounds like that's kind of good training for him and to end up what he eventually was doing with you.
Yeah. So what happened after all of those things is he met who became our CTO, this guy Scott. They became really good friends, and they started marketing companies, and they started to learn about Facebook marketing and SEO and CRO and all of the O's, essentially like how do you optimize things? How do you get a brand in front of people? All of the different ways that was happening back then. That would have been like 2012, so early days.
Early.
Yeah. And so John got pretty proficient at Facebook ads and a little bit at Google ads, started to really understand how to do that stuff. And that would absolutely help us, launch Manly Bands many years later. As we're talking about this now, it's all starting to come together.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So he's in LA, you're in LA. LA is a big town.
Yes.
How did the whole thing get together? How'd you guys find each other?
Yeah. So Match.com, which is really fun.
Is that still around? It's
still a thing. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But it's funny that, we run an e-commerce company that's, around marriage, and we met on Match, so there's that fun, coexistence.
Yes. Okay. So Match.com.
Yeah.
Tell us give us all the details.
Sure.
You found him. I don't know how it works.
How it works?
So
yeah.
you just explain it to me like I'm a novice. Okay.
Sure. So there's 1 million of those platforms now, and Match is the one that you have to pay for. And so back then, I'm sure there's a few more now that you have to pay for, but back then, I think there was a promo going on that was like $60 for 3 months or something. And again, I was broke, but I was like, whatever. I'm ready. I'm ready to meet somebody that is going to be a large part of my life. I'm done with like just the dating. So, and I had 2 friends who were in that same, headspace as well. We were all turning 30 and we're like, okay, this is the time. So we all got on Match, and a couple of them got on other sites as well. And, I had dated some other guys, but nobody was really sticking. And, my profile, like I was pretty detailed in my profile. I'm a very detailed person. John's like a big picture person. Another reason we're like a really good match.
Good team.
In terms of running the company. But anyway, so it was like a Friday night and I was feeling very sorry for myself. And Match has this chat platform where you can like chat different people instead of just writing them a message like an email. And so I'm on there and suddenly he pops up and he writes like a joke based on something for my profile. I'd said something about little dogs and how I hated little dogs. And he was like, what did little dogs do to you? And normally guys would be like, hey, how's it going? What's up? Like those would be the chat, the first line on a chat.
You just nailed it. Like that's me to a T.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he was funny. And that was like my number one requirement. You have to be funny, have to have a sense of humor because, like I said before, I treat the bad stuff in life with humor. So if you can do that as well, awesome. We're gonna be great, So we started off well. We ended up on the phone for 2 hours, and then
same night or eventually.
Yeah,
okay,
it was the same night.
Wow.
And then again got on the phone. He was out of town at the time, so again got on the phone for like several hours, and then we finally met in person, and we had this like epic date where we ended up walking through Santa Monica and going and seeing a Cirque du Soleil show that was up, in the parking lot down there, and. It was just everything, like one thing led to another, and it was just like spontaneous and beautiful. And we're on our way back from the date, and he had driven on the date, and we're on our way back, and he's like, so like, what's wrong with you? Like, why don't you have a boyfriend? I'm like, oh, that's a great question. Thank you for hurting my self-esteem. And I said, I have this pattern of making guys friends. Like my best friends in life are always guys. And so then there's that weird barrier of, do we cross the barrier and become more than friends, which ruins things sometimes, or do we just remain friends? And he's like, okay, we won't be friends. Like, okay, great.
Nice.
That was
Good
the start of something really awesome. Yeah,
John.
It was cool.
And then how long was the courtship?
We were together 7 years before we got married, which was a little longer than I wanted.
So was that is that 3 years into your LA experience?
That was, we met.
Because you're in LA 10 years.
4 years into LA. Okay. Yeah.
So okay, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
Sure.
We'll talk about that. Okay. So now you have this guy and you guys are starting to spend some time together and he's starting businesses.
Yeah.
You're trying to get into your career and you decide to get married.
Yeah. Yeah, we decided to get married. And we were trying to figure out where to get married. And very long story short, we ended up getting married in Florida near my parents. It's really beautiful, like sort of under Alabama, this random little, like they call it the Redneck Riviera. It's so pretty.
Love it.
Yeah, near Destin, Florida. So
nice.
we got married down there, and the process of getting married and planning the wedding, of course, is a thing. And if you've never planned an event before, oh man, you're about to plan an event and you're now an event planner. I mean, it's sort of the worst and best experience possible.
Right.
So in that experience, John was having a hard time trying to find his ring, and he has really big hands. So his fingers are size off the normal charts.
Yeah. If you see, there's several videos and at one, he puts you're like, put your hand up, and he puts his hand up, and it's like, he has like big hands.
Yes, he has big hands.
Big fingers, big hands.
Yeah.
Like, you walk into a jeweler and they're like, oh man, there's no chance with this guy. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So there was one jeweler who was really nice, and he's like, I can't size you, but I think you're probably about a 15 or a 16.
He didn't even have a sizer for it?
He was off the charts of the sizer. Yeah, the sizer stopped at 14. So John couldn't even size himself. It was awful. And other jewelers would pull out catalogs and just say, hey, I don't have anything in the store that's going to fit you, but here, see if there's anything in here that you want. And everything was just a really plain white gold band, and he just didn't want that.
Yeah.
He just had zero interest in something boring. He wanted to get fancy with it. he's like, how come you're allowed to get something neato, something that excites you? And that's just not an option for men. Why is that not an option?
Yeah.
And so, you know, he was percolating on it, and in his business mind just kept percolating. And we're in our apartment complex. We had a pool there. And I remember he was like standing in the middle of the pool, which was kind of shallow. And he was just like having this moment. And he was like, yeah, like there just needs to be a store for men, you know, where you can have interesting materials and you can get excited about a wedding ring, you know, like it could be called, I don't know, like manly bands, you know, and it was this beautiful moment. His hands were like up like this in the pool. And it was so cool. I was like, whatever, you're so silly. Fine. Start a business.
I love that story. And as you're telling that story, I'm envisioning Jonathan in the pool in Florida.
Yep.
I see this like sunset sky and he's kind of rays are beating down upon him as he's getting this inspiration. I think you guys could recreate that on a video for your website.
Fun idea.
It's like the origin story.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Of manly bands.
Okay.
So there you go. I'm giving that to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's like, I don't know, it seems to fit. I just love that. I just love that story. The thing I wanted to get to with Florida, though, is that you've kind of uprooted. Like,
yes.
You didn't just go to Florida to get married. You moved to Florida.
Yes.
You left California. At this point, are you at the point where you're just like, it's not working out here in California. Work isn't great, so we're going to move to Florida?
Yeah. Yeah, I had gone through a layoff at my company, so we went through a merger, and they laid off the entire LA staff except for 2 people, and so it was one of those moments, like a do or die for me in terms of the industry. I was like, okay, I'm gonna I got some severance, so I'm gonna put my head down. I'm really gonna try this and really go at it. I ended up writing a screenplay with my best friend, and we didn't have the money to produce it. You know, maybe we will someday, but at least I did that. I started going out on more auditions. I had more time, you know, to be able to do some stuff. And at the same time, John was sort of hitting a wall in his job, and he was just realizing, I'm never going to progress. I'm never going to get, you know, I'm never going to climb that corporate ladder. There's nowhere to go. My boss is amazing, and he's not retiring anytime soon. And that's the next place for me to go. Like, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So, and also, I don't think his heart was in it anymore. I think he really wanted to make a business. He wanted to create something out of what he knew. And he's a tech genius. I mean, he would just be building websites all the time and just, you know, finding little things that would help Getty to just even on the day to day.
Yeah.
Ooh, what if we did it this way? You know? And he was that proactive employee that every company wants, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really him driving this idea of let's just move, let's just cut and run. And he said, you know, what if we just do it for 6 months? We go to Florida for 6 months, just see how it works out. And we can always come back to LA, but we'll have a different perspective. So it's just kind of a reset. Yeah. And I said, okay, I hate this idea because, you know, I've been pushing. I finally like have that time and energy to really push, but it's fine. Whatever, let's give it a shot. You're right. You know, what's the definition of insanity? Like doing the same thing over and
yep.
Right, exactly. So good idea, finally. Let's do it. So we did. We moved across the country. I think we left on October 8th. We got married on October 22nd. And then we started the business on November 17th. So it was essentially like a month, 30, 45 days or something from moving to starting the company.
Okay, now in this time period, are you... I think I understood that you were starting a digital ad, something for real estate, for the real estate world.
Oh, wow. I thought we buried that story. Yes.
No. That I found that.
You did. Wow.
That wasn't even that hard.
You went deep. Wow.
To find that. And I'm just trying to get the timing of this.
Sure.
So was that as you were leaving California or when you arrived in Florida or where does that fit in the Manly Band's origin story?
Experience, yeah. So my parents were both in real estate, and part of the idea of, okay, we're going to move to Florida, obviously we're going to need to make some money. My parents were both saying, hey, we could actually use some support in what we're doing. So I was going to become my mom's assistant, and John was going to build this like super awesome website for my dad for real estate. And my dad and him were going to take over real estate. And then the other thing that John and I were going to do is we were going to bring our Hollywood know-how to the real estate industry.
Yes.
So we were going to do, 360 videos. There was a company making this amazing camera called a Matador, which exists now, but nobody cared back then. We cared, because we were innovators. And John's a great photographer too. So our, pitch was we were going to come in and we were going to do these 360 photos for you. We were going to do these amazing other photos for you and retouch it, and it would all be beautiful, and here's your package price.
Yeah.
And none of the realtors wanted to pay that kind of money, for the service. And we had to charge something decent because the camera was expensive.
Yeah.
So they wanted to take pictures of $4 million houses on their phones. And that was it was cringy for us, as people who appreciate film and photography.
Yeah.
So it wasn't working and we had to pivot. And so John was like, hey, what if we just start Plan B, like that Manly Bands idea. And so at night we would build Manly Bands. We work for my parents during the day and try to push our own business during the day. And then Plan B was, the last several hours at night in bed, sitting there building Manly Bands, creating rings.
That's amazing. Now, you were building the rings on your own?
Yeah, I was building the rings. I was sourcing the rings and I was creating the personality of each of the rings. So each of the rings became their own little personality. So, in the entertainment industry, as an actor, you call something a character breakdown. Like you're going in for this role, she's 25 to 28, she's a receptionist, blah, blah, blah. And it goes into what she's like. So each of these rings became a little character in the big story of Manly Bands to me. Yeah. So the cowboy, was this guy who is a keyboard warrior, but he dreams of being outside all the time. And that's to remind him, that he belongs outside,
Yes.
cutting wood, doing his thing,
I love it. I love it. And each of the rings has its own name and its unique flavor. I'm going to tell you something about that, about the rings and the names. Because like that, for me, that's meaningful. And so the ring that I'm wearing right now, this one, this is called the Surfer. And that resonated with me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would ever have picked a ring like this style.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Southern California. I grew up very close to the beach. I was at the beach constantly. And I came across this one. I was like, yeah, that one really fits.
That's the one.
And so maybe not like stylistically, I wouldn't have picked this, but the combination of the name and the ring was like, oh yeah, that's really, and I think that's unique.
Thanks.
About what you guys do. And there are lots of rings like that. There's one we were talking about. I have some samples. I'll show. There's one that's called the American that I've already made a list of all my next rings.
Yes.
I have to budget for all these
I love it.
rings. So there's the American, it's like black and it has the flag, the American flag etched in it. There's the Patton. So Patton, great, historical U.S. general and the tank.
Tank medal, yeah.
Yeah. And the great movie with George C. Scott.
Right.
It was very meaningful for me growing up. It was my grandpa's, one of his favorite movies, and so the Patton is now on my list. I mean, the way that you've created this ability to tie the ring to a personality and a story, I think is really meaningful.
Thanks.
So just a point on that. Back to the story. Okay, Manly Bands came out of this desire to create something, and especially for guys whose only options were like a white gold or
yellow gold
or a yellow gold band, and it was pretty simple.
Yeah.
And maybe something for people who had fingers that fit outside of the whatever the normal range would be. Yeah. And that's what you came up with. Okay. What was your first? So you guys jump into this. Yeah. By the way, you're like all in. Did you get any? Okay, did you take out loans? Did you get any help? Did you have some funds set aside? Like, how did you start this?
This is the worst idea ever. But so when we were
starting the company, or how you
how we funded the company.
Okay.
Don't recommend, but it worked out for us. So I had a really high limit on a credit card of mine because of the wedding. It was a Southwest card, and I was getting all these Southwest miles, which was great. And so it was a really high limit. The high for me at the time, it was like $40,000. And so John's like, yeah, what if we, use that card, to do Facebook ads? And I was like, yeah, that's great. That's great. Great idea. It's in my name,
I'd rather get do a vampire thing.
Right. Yeah. So it really worked out, because we were, of course, able to pay the card off every month and it was fine. And then at one point, just to get some stock, my dad did give us a small loan, and that was really helpful. We were able to pay him back, within the month, which was great.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those were the only two things we did. And then we just kept investing every single dollar back into the business.
Okay.
And it worked. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks. We were very lucky. Very lucky.
Well, I think one of the things that you talked about is a key to your success is that you didn't give yourself you couldn't fail. Like
Right.
you didn't give yourself any alternatives.
Yeah. There was no out.
Like you were in.
Yes.
You two were in. We're building wedding rings for men, manly
Mm-hmm.
men. Okay. What was the first ring you came out with and why?
Yeah. So the blue steel, which he's now called the model, but
Is
he
this
was
from
Zoolander.
Yes.
Yeah. He was totally named after Zoolander.
Oh, I love it.
But he's still on the website. He's a tungsten ring, but then he has blue inside in the sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just that little hit of like something that makes him special, but on the outside it's like pretty normal looking. And we have a lot of rings like that where there's like a hidden inside, that's like something special to that guy. But blue steel it was our biggest hit at first. It was so fun. And then a couple years down the road, we found that there was a company called Blue Steel Jewelry, and we were just trying to be like good humans in the world. And we're like, okay, we'll change the name to the model. But so that was the first biggest hit. And then we had another one called the Mountain Man that was a wood ring in tungsten. And it had its day in the sun, and then it just kind of started to die. And so he went away eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so were those your first two?
They were the first two big ones, yeah.
Were they the first two big ones,
Mm-hmm.
or they the first two that you created?
Oh, well, I created like 15 to start. So yeah, they were part of that first 15 for sure.
Okay, but those two took off. And is that through
Yes.
all of the digital marketing that you
Yes.
were doing? So Facebook
Yes.
and everything else?
Google ads, yeah. We had a social team too, but yeah, it was really about leaning into the personality and leaning into permission to, giving the guy permission to be able to get something he got excited about. Those were the things. And then we also started talking to, back then, Facebook was, less private. And so it would tell us who your customer was. And that was amazing. So we could see that we were serving like 70% women in terms of conversions. We had like the woman was converting in that straight couple, that typical straight couple. And so we were like, okay, we're going to start talking to her. And so we had ads where we were talking to her and checking this off, her list of the wedding, all the wedding duties. And so that started to do really, really well for us as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And knowing your audience is key. I mean, it's so important. You may think, we thought we had the city guy. We have like the middle of the country guy, which is a very different guy. It's great, but that's why our military heritage line goes really well, because that guy is very patriotic.
Yes.
He's super into those materials.
Yes.
So great, lean into who your customer is,
Yeah. Well, okay, let's jump into that. I was going to
Yeah.
ask about it at some point, but this seems like a good place to go into. Now you've started the company, you're having some success, and your strategy moving forward in creating these rings. Okay, so now you've created several rings, and at that point, are you thinking like big? Like,
Yes.
Okay, you're like, I'm gonna create so many rings, and is Jonathan on board with that? Is he?
Yeah,
You're not like,
he was
okay,
driving it,
we're just
yeah.
gonna have like 6 standard rings and different. Okay,
No.
you're in.
Yeah, he was CEO at that point. He was driving all the objectives and the future of the company, and I was along for the ride. It was very much like I was in the back seat at that point and just supporting. And it was January of 2017, very early January. It was like January 5th, I think.
January 2017, and you started the company
in November of 2016.
Okay.
So just a couple months in.
Yeah.
We were sitting playing dominoes with my mom's friends, and we're having a gay old retired time, and it was awesome. It was a nice time, and we had the Shopify notifications on our phones. When you get like a cha-ching when you get a sale. And suddenly it was cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It was like every 5 seconds there was a cha-ching.
What?
And it was the weirdest thing. And that was the day that we were like, oh, wow. Oh, this is a thing. hey, Mom, Dad, I think we need to quit our jobs with you. I think this is a thing. I think we really need to put our like full focus into this right now.
Wow.
Yeah, because we were still at that point doing little stuff for them. And John was doing little side projects for Getty too still. So yeah, we were kind of in limbo. And that was the day that we realized, oh man, we really need to focus. And so we did. We stopped working for my parents and we put our heads down and we just hit the grind.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What was the next, like, as you're thinking about, we need to create all this stuff, people are buying into it, they like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is how did you draw this up? What was your strategy moving forward to create this mass of productivity?
Yeah. So John wanted us to have more rings, so we went up to 50. And so I took his direction on that, designed another bunch of rings, we sourced them, and then we started wanting a much more premium line. And so over the course of that next year, we started working with another company that was here in Utah, actually, that was making rings. And so we started to just design really wacky stuff, and they had some really fun materials to play with, like dinosaur bone and meteorite.
Yeah.
And so I started designing stuff based on the materials that they had, and then adding different kinds of personalities and different kinds of collections based on those things, So you had this collection of dinosaur bone rings, which is wacky, and we make those in our manufacturing space now. And it's so neat because we have a paleontologist on staff. And so we can be like, hey, Ethan, what is this? And he's like, oh, that's T-Rex, and he's digging them up himself. So that's how he can authenticate them.
Oh my gosh.
He's out like wherever he goes to dig up amazing dinosaur fossils and brings them back to us.
Yes.
So it's the coolest, but that's a big thing for us to be able to authenticate everything. And like the military, heritage materials, like we have M1 Garand rifle stock sitting in the office. We have Sherman tank metal sitting in the office, a B-17 bomber wing. I mean, it's the coolest. Yeah.
Where are you getting all this inspiration? Like you're
Sure.
Is that fair? You're the creative force behind all of these?
Yeah. I would say I'm definitely the creative force. We've had many people on the products team that have really helped. So it's not, I can't take the credit for all of that. But yeah, I mean, all of us start to put our ideas into like, hey, have we thought about, X? Have you thought about like, throwing some glow into a ring, So our Green Lantern ring has the Green Lantern symbol on the front, but it also glows, in the dark. And the Sauron ring glows in the dark. I mean, there's all kinds of random cool stuff. But we're always trying to one-up ourselves. And so it's a really fun environment of going, hey, guys, like, I want to do a ring that looks like this. And then somebody will be like, hey, what if you up the ante by, adding this element to it? So it's almost like my old improv days of like, yes, and, like, yeah, that's an awesome material, but also like, let's throw, I don't know, dinosaur bone in it or meteorite or, crushed diamonds or something.
Yeah. Okay. So for all of the business owners out there who are listening and entrepreneurs, are all of these creations based on things that you think are cool, or are you like out doing market research?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Both. So we will survey our customers a lot. And we're really lucky that they'll actually take our crazy long surveys and tell us what they like. But oftentimes we'll do it before we think about adding another license or a new material or investing in something like another section of the business that we know is going to be a big deal, like manufacturing. Doing a survey about pricing was really helpful to us because that was at that time, I think it was like 2022 that we added manufacturing. And the biggest hindrance was the economy. People wanted something cool, but they couldn't afford the prices that we had. And so, we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we bring our prices down? And the chief way that we were going to bring our prices down was to bring that manufacturing process in-house and to optimize it and make it better. And so that's what we've done.
Okay, so previously, when you started, you started making rings initially. At what point did you start to go work with like a third-party manufacturer?
Yeah.
And what was that process like, and how difficult was it to bring it back in-house?
Yeah. So we never actually made them ourselves. We were always sourcing from other folks.
Okay.
But bringing the process in-house was extremely difficult and very expensive. And I would warn people, if you're thinking about doing something like that, make sure you have extra capital on the side, because that was a big shock to us how much more it cost us than we realized. Because you get excited and you want to expand things. It's natural.
Yeah.
You end up needing, or we ended up needing to expand the team as well, and needed more bodies, more people's help in making things. And then there are so many economic shifts that have been happening over the last several years. The privacy laws that happened, when was that? 21, 22, where, we all lost the ability to track people so much in e-commerce. And we are not an impulse buy. So being able to track somebody for a week versus, I think we were able to do 60 days before. And that was excellent because we could retarget the crap out of them. And it was really easy to get that conversion. But nowadays, it's just not like that. And so you have to, get your brand in front of somebody and really resonate with them fast. And then you got to keep retargeting and resonating with them in a sea of, what now for us is a ton of competitors.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, there really weren't a whole lot of men's wedding ring companies.
No.
And the ones that were there certainly weren't really pushing on social media the way that we were. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that it's not an impulse buy.
Right.
So men or couples or somebody's planning on, like, they're thinking about it, then they're starting to do some research, and then finally they're going to talk themselves into making the purchase. Can you see how many times someone is visiting the site and how long it takes? What are the averages? Like,
that's a good question. When I have popped in, and really that's sort of John's area, but when I've popped in, it's typically like three
visits
touch points.
to the site.
Yeah. But maybe there's more. Like, I can't see how many touch points we've had from the ad side, but from the product side, I can see how many times they're visiting the website. And so what I've seen is an average of about 3. But I don't know if the other side of the relationship has been visiting and has been driving the purchase, right? Because those people don't have the same last name, certainly before marriage. So you have no way of tracking that unless they live together and you're looking at IP addresses. I mean, I wish we could really get that crazy, but we can't. Yeah.
And people probably are spending a long time on the site. Like, it's, I'm not going to say it's really interactive, but there's so many different elements. Like, if you go look at it, and I've just kind of gone through everything, but mostly on the men's ring side, there's a drop down. It's like gold collection, black collection, the military, and then you have all of these others, like collaborations or licensings that you've done with Jeep and Fender and Jack Daniels and DC. And so, I mean, you can kind of you've built the site in such a way that I bet people kind of get lost in there. Like, they're just spending a lot of time looking at all the options. Have you found that to be the case? Is that your feedback that you're getting? Yeah, and that's probably super helpful.
Yeah, it's something we're working on this year a lot, the sort of decision overload that we've created because we get excited and it's our fault for showing too many things. Yeah. I mean, we had the best conversion of our lives when we had 20 rings on the site, but we're just too fancy now, and that's the problem. So we have to figure out a way to help a guy, find what he wants. And also, men and women shop really differently. And I think it's so important to take into account, when you're owning a company and really trying to drive that conversion and marketing for someone, because a female customer wants to see everything typically, like very stereotypically, she wants to see everything, needs to see everything, needs to know that she saw literally every single product available, and then she can make an informed decision. Whereas he just wants to be driven right into what's perfect for him. And so it's a very different experience. And so we've got to figure out a way this year, and that's part of the plan this year, to try to find a way to help him shop better, help her shop better in the way that they both want to shop.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that about overload. And not that that's a bad thing, but like for me, as I'm looking through all of the options, there's, a dozen that I think, well, that's the one I want. That's the one I want. But I can't, well, I don't know. I guess I could. I can't justify buying a dozen rings. And so the thing that I've done is I asked you for some feedback on 3 gold bands that I was considering. And you had a very distinct, it's this one. You should get this one. So that's the one we're doing. But then I settled on the Surfer. Yeah. But now what I've done is I'm building a list of all the others I'm going to buy over time. We were talking about Jonathan and whether or not he wears one ring, or if he's and you said he wears a ring, but he has obviously has access to it, but he has all the other rings, and so he'll switch those out. Yeah. And I think that's something that maybe can be a trend for men. Yes. For example, you don't have to wear the same wedding ring, if
Right.
you're wearing a wedding ring. You don't have to, this is the thing that's been new for me. And maybe it's just an evolution, because once upon a time, the guys that would wear rings on all of their different fingers is not necessarily the guys that wasn't necessarily my group.
Right.
That's much more of a Johnny Depp thing. I think Johnny Depp's super cool, but that's much more of a Johnny Depp thing.
Yes.
Like to have rings on all his different fingers, but for me, it's like, nope, straight laced, ring on one finger. But now I got the surfer, that's going to be my middle ring finger. And like, that's really comfortable
That's
to have
awesome.
it on that finger. And now I'm even started thinking about branching out to, okay, could I put one on my pointer finger? How would it be on my thumb? I was going to do a pinky ring and lean into my family mob
Italian heritage. Yes.
ties, which you clearly have.
Obviously.
Yes, Lucchese. Somewhere a C got dropped along there, but we know the Lucchese family back in New York is still prominent.
Yes,
And
they're still a big deal.
I
Yes.
know. I think that we have to maybe do some research into that. And
We do.
And I'm also going to suggest that you don't have to do anything. It's like, maybe we should do, the 5 families.
Ooh.
The rings for the 5
I
families.
love that. That's a great
You,
idea.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
super.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I work on that
Yes,
with you?
please.
I'm
I
just
would love
engaged.
that. That's so fun.
I want to do that.
Why not? Okay.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's a story in our family about my grandfather who used to have some mob time. Not like he was in the mob, but he was a kid. He was young. He needed money, and maybe he was running some errands. That's what he did. He ran errands.
Yes. That's what they all did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe we could come up with a ring, the errand boy. You know?
Yes. What do they got? Like, when you were made,
Yeah, the made man.
The made man. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, the capo. I mean, the Don.
The Don. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a whole line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a thing.
I love it.
This is a thing.
It's the Italian line.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah,
awesome.
maybe we could do it like with wine barrels.
I
like
do
the
have
wood
wine
from-
barrel. Yes.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
This is
done.
magic.
Yes.
This feels like another Jonathan standing in the pool moment to me. Yeah.
It's Frank, the mob line.
The mob line. Okay, we're doing this.
I love it.
Back to the story. When did you decide? So you're creating all this stuff. What prompted you to jump into this? Well, what if we did a licensing deal with Jack Daniels, or what if we did something with Fender, or how did that evolve?
Yeah.
Just how did that evolve? Let's go there.
Yeah. So I have to give our former CMO the credit on Jack Daniels. She was amazing. And she was like, hey, I know this is a wacky idea, but we have these whiskey barrel rings. They're selling really well. And she's always looking for different ways to market things. So she was like, what if we did a license with Jack Daniels? And I was like, yeah, sure. Sounds great. Awesome. Like, reach out to them. Sure. Like, I had zero time to deal with that. And so she reached out to them. She got attention of their licensing department, which was amazing. And we very swiftly put together a proposal for them. And I was designing all the rings at that point. So I, in a day designed a few extra rings, for our line and put them together for her. And they loved it. They were like, yes, awesome. I did a bunch of research into Jack Daniels and the start of the brand and everything. And so like the Jasper ring that's in there, it's named after Jack Daniels. That's his actual given name is Jasper. And so each one of the rings in the Jack Daniels line that I started with had a very special and interesting part of their heritage as a brand. There was the Lynchburg because that's the dry town that they started the company in. That they still exist in.
Still exist in a dry town.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Yeah.
Funny.
So just different stuff like that along the line. And then, I named the one after my dad too, because he's a whiskey lover. So I went into history of Frank Sinatra was a big whiskey lover. And so we named one after him for a bit, There were different things like that, trying to find who is connected to whiskey and then why somebody would care about that ring. Those were kind of the questions I asked myself.
Yes.
In putting those together.
Yes. Okay. So was that your first?
That was the first one.
Jack Daniels was the first?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you have several. We talked about it. There's
6, I think now.
There's several. What drove all of those decisions? Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so the One Ring was one of those things that we always wanted to have. It just seems like
The
an
One Ring,
obvious
the
from Lord of the Rings, right? It's such an obvious ad, and so at one point we invested in hiring a gal who had a ton of experience in licensing, and so we brought her in, and she was able to get us a license with Warner Brothers, who has DC Comics and has Lord of the Rings. And so that's how we started those lines. And then we just started talking more about different ways of bringing different audiences of people in to us. So Jeep was another one of those ideas. How do we get an audience in who loves the product? They're all a part of this community. Let's bring that community in.
Yeah.
And so Jeep was, a way that we could try something like that. And so and it's so fun. I mean, the Jeep community, I don't know, is a super married community, So and I don't mean married like they're not married to each other, but like there are a lot of single people, and that's something that we're kind of trying to figure out too. Maybe it's more of a fashion ring for them. And so, all of the licenses there's been like some thought around, okay, what is this community? Who would be connected to this? Why does it make sense for us? And we hadn't really done enough research into, are folks who are big into Jeeping, are they a big married bunch or are they a big single bunch? And I think we're finding that they're more single, but that's fine. So we go after the fashion play, like you're wearing yours on your middle finger,
Yeah. Well, for me, a guy who's been married for a long time, like I don't necessarily need another wedding ring, but but you've created this persona with the rings, and so now for a guy like me, married, it's more of a fashion thing. Like, oh yeah, I can wear this ring on this different ring. I can try it over here, and so I think that's a really interesting way for the company to evolve. And the Jeep rings are super cool.
Thanks.
Like the tire
that
tread,
rock crawler, yeah.
You have one in there called the Moab.
Yeah.
And people who love Moab.
Yeah.
That just is going to resonate, married or not. So it's really, really cool stuff. I love the military heritage stuff that you've done. In all of these creations, they're probably like all your babies.
They are.
I'm going to ask you about your favorite baby.
Yeah, who's my favorite baby?
Yeah. Do you have something that you...
I do have a favorite baby. This is the cowboy. He was a mistake. Like you have that baby that's like an oops baby. That the cowboy was an oops baby. I misordered him the way that he was. And I asked for something that I didn't realize I was asking for. And when he came in, I was like, he is everything.
See, that could be my...
Yes.
That's perfect for my pinky.
Yes, he is perfect for your pinky.
What size is that?
That's probably like
put that on my list.
That's probably a 7, yeah.
Yeah, it's
probably
absolutely
6 or 7,
perfect.
yeah.
Doesn't it look good?
Isn't he fun? Yeah. So he's koa wood and black tungsten. And
love it.
koa wood from Hawaii, so it has meaning for people where Hawaii, yours has koa wood in it as well.
The surfer would.
Yeah. So for people where, Hawaii is a big thing to them, which it was for us, we went and did our honeymoon in Hawaii. Koa wood was a big deal for us.
Yeah, just Maui. I saw that
Yeah,
picture.
yes, the just Maui. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was like our sort of recommitment ceremony that we had on our honeymoon. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, we wanted to get married in Maui, but it just kind of wasn't working out for several reasons. So ended up doing Florida for the actual wedding.
Gotcha.
So,
well, you know what? This is probably a good time. I'm going to bring out dropping everything. Okay, so you brought in all these samples.
Sure.
Which I love. And this can demonstrate the personality of each of these rings. Now, this is the one that I'm getting made. Okay, and I sent you 3 ideas of a gold ring, and I don't have a gold ring. Gold seems to be coming back.
Yeah.
So tell us about this particular ring. This is the Baron.
Yeah, so it's desert ironwood in the sleeve on the inside, which is such a beautiful wood. It has a bunch of different colors of grain in there.
Yeah.
So it's every piece of that wood is just absolutely special. And then the outside is solid gold, but it has this distressed finish. So what's so fun about that
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, gold scratches really easily. And so what's fun about a distressed finish is, you're never going to see scratches over time. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
It's
so
very
just
distinct.
fancy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I can't wait that one's coming soon.
Yeah, that's coming soon.
Okay. All right. This one is also very interesting.
Yes. The electric.
This is in the Fender line?
Yes, that's the Fender line.
That's the Fender line. Okay, tell us about this ring.
Yeah. So the electric has ebony wood, which is one of those like classic woods that's used to make electric guitars. And then we've got one of the electric guitar strings in there. I think it's a G string, I think is what they're using. But yeah, we tried to be really authentic.
So you could
Just so we could say
So
G
you
string.
can say G string.
Maybe.
If you
I
didn't,
think it
then
is,
just
though.
use that. Like it's a G string.
It's like the perfect width, you know? Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very classy. Very
Thanks.
classy. Okay. And now we're getting into this one is kind of fun. How about
Which one
this?
is that? Oh, that's the Joker.
The Joker.
From the DC line.
Yeah.
So you've got Cerakote inside there, the purple Cerakote and green Cerakote on the outside. It has Damascus steel in the inlay, and it looks kind of beat up in a really like sinister, creepy, crazy way.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the Joker,
Yes.
and it has these colors in it. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah.
But it's still a super classy.
Yeah.
Ring.
Right.
And
On the outside, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and all of the rings are they're like substantial. Like it
Thanks.
feels like you really okay. I gotta put my surfer back on here. Okay, I love these with this like the wood inlay and these. I know these are
Yeah.
different lines.
Yeah.
But can you tell us about these?
Yeah, sure.
Rings?
So this one right here is the MacArthur. So that has the M1 Garand rifle stock in it.
Yeah.
And then it's got a distressed finish on the sides too. So it's part of our military heritage line.
Yes.
One of our best sellers that we make right in our shop. It's really fun.
Yeah, the military heritage I love. I didn't. It's hard to tell on the website this particular ring, but it's the wood.
Yep.
And which wood is this?
That's Whiskey Barrel. So that's part of the Jack Daniels line. That's the Jasper. And
Oh,
so
this
it's
is the Jasper.
Yeah, it has 2 hits of gold in it
Yes.
too.
So there's I don't know if you can tell, but there's the barrel, a little line of gold, and then what is the rest of the material?
Yeah, it's black zirconium. Yeah. Black zirconium is such a cool material.
So classy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Why is
Yeah.
black zirconium a cool material? Is it easy to work with, or is it just the durability, or?
All of it. It's not as scratch resistant as say like a tungsten, but it is such a fun material. So it's silver in its like infancy. And what we do is we bake it, and when you bake it, it turns it black.
Oh.
So there's certain materials where there's like a black coating that are put on them, and so those can fade over time. That's not what black zirconium is, because black zirconium is baked, and so it's never going to fade over time. But what can happen with black zirconium is, you know, as you knock it around and you know you do life, you might get like little lines here and there, and you have like a little bit of the silver from underneath that shines through. So it kind of creates your own like distress, your own like, I don't know, just design over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you
Love
look
it.
at your grandpa's gold ring, it's going to have so much life to it. It's going to have all these.
Lots of character.
Yeah, exactly. Character. And I think people get really scared about metal scratching, all metal scratches to some degree, but it's also really beautiful because over time you get to see the life of that ring
Yeah.
and, you know, the life that person lived.
Yeah.
You know, you inherit a grandfather's ring and you look at that gold and it's like, wow, that is so awesome. I wonder what this used to look like, you know?
I agree. And I think maybe that the Baron,
Yeah.
I think that is appealing because
Yeah.
like at my stage of life, it just represents like
All you've been through.
of the experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have that. Okay, here is another one that I really like.
Oh, the Jurassic. So the Jurassic has that desert ironwood in the sleeve, but it also has dinosaur bone, black dinosaur bone in the inlay, which is so fun. And then it has a hammered finish on the outside.
Yes.
So you have that very like Jurassic-y,
Yes.
you know,
That.
dinosaur-y, prehistoric, you know, feeling to it.
I especially love this one because I was telling you about a pointer finger
Yeah.
ring and look at that. Like
Oh, that fits beautifully.
I know.
Yeah, nice.
So all of a sudden, I'm incorporating all of my fingers into these rings. I don't know what I would have thought of that had it not been for you guys.
Sure.
Because all of a sudden it feels like, oh man, this
Why not?
one. Yeah, why not? The Jurassic. Okay. Love that one too.
And what's cool about the dinosaur bone too, it kind of ends up coming to us in sort of 3 different colors. Well, not even just 3, like sometimes 5 different colors. I mean, we've had some
Oh.
T-Rex bone come in that's purple, Triceratops has come in as red. Like, it just kind of depends on the dig and where the fossils are dug up, just, okay, is it in like red rock or is it in the desert? So the color can change dependent on where it was dug up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, this one, classy, from the DC line.
Oh yeah, that's the Bruce Wayne.
The Bruce Wayne.
He's like subtle and fancy at the same time.
You can tell. It's Batman's alter ego. There he is.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
that?
he's like a big entrepreneur, that guy. So he's got some black diamonds to him.
Yeah, that's a good wedding band.
It is.
Yeah.
We have another similar-ish one that's more of like a hammered finish with bigger black diamonds called the Billionaire. And he's like bling, 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 bling. Oh. But it's like subtle bling.
But
so
subtle.
It's so cool.
Subtle. Yeah, I love it. Okay, this...
Is that the Lucchese?
This is the Lucchese. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is about this ring. Mm-hmm. The finish...
That's the distressed finish again.
The distressed finish. What is the material on the outside?
That's black zirconium.
Black, okay. Mm-hmm. It just I really am liking the distressed finishes.
Good.
And then on the inside
is whiskey barrel.
It has
Jack
the whiskey
Daniels,
barrel. And this is the one named after your dad?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The Lucchese. That is a classic. I told you I had a list of like three rings, and now it just keeps expanding.
It's growing.
I love that's a classic one as well. The other thing that you get, I picked up my Surfer yesterday, and it comes in a really nice box, a great presentation. The other thing that's included in there is a silicone ring. Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah. Because, guys get really scared about, is the ring is it going to take my finger off? There's all this talk about Jimmy Fallon and what happened to him and, the degloving, and the internet exists, so people get scared.
Yes.
It's a fair question. And all of our materials either crack off or can be broken off, in emergency. So we've taken great care for that. But just for the guy who doesn't want to be wearing stuff, when he's scared of those situations, you've got the silicone band, because your hands do swell as you work out. And it's never a good idea to wear a metal ring to the gym just because of the swelling. Yeah. Also, it's uncomfortable, and you're going to scratch it if you're picking up weights with it and stuff.
Especially the weights I pick, like the big, massive weights.
The big manly weights, right, that you're picking up, Frank.
I'm not picking up little stuff.
Right.
I didn't come there to pick up little stuff, so I don't want to damage the surface.
It's a lot of deadlifts,
But it's, yes, people are typically impressed. The Surfer, that's not going in there, but the silicone ring is very appropriate. Or if I'm out on a bike ride, or if I'm at the beach, or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's a really nice feature to put in there.
Thanks.
This one.
So that's the one ring. And that's a size 21, just to give you a sense of how big they can go.
And is this too small for
John? No, John's a 17. No, that's actually too big for him. Yeah,
we made that's a massive ring.
Yeah, we made that for a customer who I guess thought they were a size 21 and then realized they were a size 10, which was very different.
How does that happen?
People don't know their sizes. That's the problem. Like, guys don't know their size, because women, we wear rings as fashion rings. And so you start to get to know at least-ish what you think your size might be. Yeah. And it kind of shifts a little bit. Like, when you have a big stone on the top, you often need a smaller size because you want it to sit up. So that's like a whole women's ring thing. But for men, there's just not really, fashion rings are not as big a deal for men. Yeah. And so there's no way for them to know their size. So yeah, we do a free sizer on the website. Yeah.
Which I got.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know my ring size.
Sure.
And I was looking at, all of a sudden I'm thinking, with all of these options, I have lots of different opportunities to wear rings. Yes. So now I need to know for every finger. So, and I actually sent you all of these different sizes. But that's the nice thing. It's this plastic. There's how many different ring sizes in there? It probably goes from a 5 or a 6
5 to
all
20,
the way.
I think. Yeah.
And these snap right out of the plastic. You can wear it around during the day to see if that, and that's exactly what I did. So
that's great.
Very nice feature. I'm going to finish off this with my very favorite. This is next on my list. And I wish you could see that. I know you can't, but this one's called the American, and you have a few other options, versions of this, but this is, what material is this?
So that's black zirconium as well, and it's an engraving in the black zirconium of an American flag, and it's just sort of like a artistic version of the American flag.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And we have one called the Patriot that has a white Cerakote on it. And Cerakote is this material that they use in guns, like to coat guns. So
Yes.
it's super durable.
Yes.
And then we have one called the Veteran that's red, white, and blue colors in there.
Yeah, I saw that one at the shop yesterday, which is very nice. But look at that. Like, that's just so...
It's subtle, but it's
so good.
It says something to you, which is the important part.
And I love that I can wear it on, like, I've just never even considered that. Wearing it on that finger.
Why not?
It's super comfortable. I don't know, maybe people thought it would get in the way or yeah.
And your right and your left hand are going to be different sizes.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Completely
Usually
different.
about a half size smaller on the left hand, but not everybody is the same. You know, it depends, do you crack your knuckles a lot? And fingers are different.
Yeah.
Some guys have like a pretty big knuckle, but a pretty small end of their finger. Some guys are like their finger kind of grows and gets like larger as you get close to the hand, And some people are the opposite of that. It gets smaller, so you really have to size yourself.
Yeah. Well, okay, that was fun. That was our try on time. I usually do like a 3 random question section, but I think we're going to use that as our
That's fine.
The ring try on time as our 3 random questions. Okay, let's get into kind of where you are today with Manly Bands. I'd like to talk about just things that people might find useful in their careers, in their business life as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
If you look back across all of your experience with Manly Bands and where you are today, what are the best things, or what is the best thing that you did to get this started? And what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking at starting a business, running a business, growing a business?
What is the best thing we did? That's such a good question. Well, I think the best thing we both did was to figure it out. We both had this weird skill of being able to figure things out. I think that comes from being really broke and really poor and choosing careers that do not make money. So we became scrappy. Yeah. And when you're starting a business, you have to think outside the box. You have to be scrappy. And what that means is, instead of just thinking of a ring as a normal ring, think of it as something that's special. Like, what would be special to you? What would be special to this person over here? How can somebody connect to your product in a special way? Thinking outside the box in marketing in that respect, and then, like we said before, talking to your specific customer. Do the research to find out who your customer is. Do surveys, ask customers over email or through exit surveys to tell you who they are and what they like, and they will tell you because people they're scrolling their phone anyway. They've just purchased. It's on their phone. They're going to answer a couple questions from you. So, I do it as a consumer.
I did it. I got the survey at the end of my purchase.
Oh, good. Yeah. And be a consumer too. Like, don't be that person that is not consuming, because it's really important that you're on social media, you're seeing what people see. You're seeing what products people see. You're a shopper. I shop on several Shopify sites, and so I get to see, what new features are happening that maybe we don't know about or we haven't thought about. I get to understand why somebody else's site is easier to navigate than ours. Oh, hey, I got an idea because, I was on this site and it made sense to do this. I noticed that this clearance section looked like this for this express reason, or this communication of marketing made sense to me. And that's a big thing for us too, is like trying to be bite-sized about that communication, because people have 2 seconds to look at whatever you're putting in front of them. And if you're not super clear, it's like a billboard. You're driving past a billboard and you have to get really smart about how you do your billboards. Like, you can't have 10 words on there.
Right.
No one's ever going to ingest that. You have one billboard with 10 words and a whole bunch of pictures, and everyone's like,
You just disregard it.
Right. So
and
if
you never
think
remember
of,
it.
Right. So if you think of a digital ad like a billboard, it will serve you, get their attention. It's not like you have to be dirty or shocking, but pull in that audience in whatever way your brand makes sense to pull them in.
Yeah.
No.
A couple other things I think that happened along the way, as I've now learned your story, is there was a need. You found a need, okay, and that was just from kind of this experience you had shopping for a ring with a guy that had
big hands,
manly hands. Yeah, big hands. Okay, so there was a need, and then you were able to dial into experiences of both partners. So super creative and find inspiration in all of these different ways and seem to tap into what people like. And so that's obviously useful. Jonathan, building these digital marketplaces and agencies and entrepreneurial spirit and all of those experiences, starting businesses, going through businesses that failed, all of those lessons just kind of lended itself to all of the success or everything that you were able to create with Manly Band. So, I mean, I don't know that everyone's going to be able to do that, but if you can find a need, like fulfilling a need is critical.
Fulfilling a need, but also, being real with yourself about what you're good at.
Yes,
and then doing the thing that you're good at and then being humble about it. Like those are probably the best pieces of advice I could ever give, because you may think, you are the most amazing ring designer in the world, and then somebody one-ups you and they make the coolest thing and you're like, oh man, you're knocked down a peg. But then you have to one-up yourself, and think about, oh, well, what's a better version of that product that I can do? Not necessarily I'm going to one-up my competitor, but I'm going to do something better for my customer.
Yes.
Because that's the thing too. You can get really stuck in competitors. You should know what they're doing. Absolutely. But you should not be like browsing their site every day. You shouldn't be obsessed with them. You should just understand what market they're serving and not try to serve that market. Serve the other market that you're good at.
Your competitor may not be attracting the same type of customer. So this idea about customer focus, this is for all types of businesses. Customer focus seems to be supreme. That's something inherent in Manly Bands, in the DNA of Manly Bands. Okay, as you're looking now, same thing back across all of the experience and everything else, is there something you think, oh man, I would never do that again, or this is a mistake that we made and had to overcome, and here's a way to avoid that?
Yeah, kind of back on the subject of being humble, there was seasonality to the wedding business that we were not aware of that first year. And so we were trucking, we were doing so well. And I remember my dad was advising us that first year and for a few years. And he was like, yeah, you guys, you're going to pull in like $2 million in revenue this year. And we were like, you're crazy. What are you even talking about? That's a ridiculous amount of money. He was right, which was nuts. And we were watching the numbers grow and grow and grow. And then we got to October and we hit this halt and we didn't understand why. And it wasn't until the second year that we understood the seasonality of our business and our kind of product. And every business has seasonality. Every product has seasonality. You have to stay on top of it and be ready for the next season. All of the things like, if you think of apparel, they're always, they're selling for spring now. And we're all like, I'm cold. Why do I want, a summer dress? But that's how their market works. And so for us, we found that men or, the other side of the partner, whoever is purchasing, they're purchasing a month or two in advance of that event, of the wedding, of the anniversary, or what have you. And so by October, things are drying up for us because October weddings, that's the end of wedding season, but those purchases were largely happening in September. And so we didn't understand that there was going to be a screeching halt in October. So we had built up this whole team that was writing handwritten thank you cards to all of our customers, which was such a value add. It was so fun, but it was expensive, And so it was my mom and my cousin and one of my best friends, and we had to cut them all loose because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So we just hit a curveball. And so being able to budget, which is like such a strange concept when you're first starting, but budgeting and like seeing the road ahead and understanding seasonality of that particular product and that business is key.
Being thoughtful and strategic.
Yes.
And you're not going to be able to see all of the obstacles in the road, but trying to, as much as you can.
Right. And knowing that there are going to be things that you don't know and having money aside so that when those things happen, there isn't this like crunch. We all as like e-commerce entrepreneurs went through this nasty thing, in like 21, 22, 23. It was beautiful in 2020 and most of 21, but privacy laws changed a lot of things. And then the economy changed a lot of things. People going back into stores changed a lot. And we had all built our businesses up. We'd hired all these people, and then you see in the news, so many e-commerce companies having to do layoffs, and it sucked. It sucked for all of us to have to do that.
Absolutely.
No one wants to have to lay people off.
No.
But those are the kinds of things like now we're smarter about how we hire, you know, and how much we hire and how we build the team. We're much more strategic about it.
Yeah. Is part of that strategy the video that I got from Jonathan
Which video?
after my ring purchase?
Oh, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, isn't it?
I got a video.
Yeah.
He even said my name.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a service called Maverick, and
How
it's
about that?
it's really cool. The day he was setting it up, he was like sitting out in our foyer because it had really good acoustics, and he was like, Frank, Jimmy, John, Michelle, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they end up, you record one video and then they splice in the person's name
Yes.
in that little section. So
Yeah.
it's an automatic thing, but it feels very personalized to the customer.
It did.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very nice. Okay, so that's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
What is the best advice in this experience that you've ever received,
Mm-hmm.
or the best advice that you've ever given?
Yeah. So I worked with a commercial producer for a while. And when I first started working for her, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I was in LA. I just wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
But I needed a day job. And so, you know, I was working for her. I'm really detail oriented. So I took to producing really well, which is why I took to operations really well, because it's detail work. And I'll stop and say producing is very similar to running a company. So for the producers out there, if you've ever thought about starting an e-commerce company or any kind of
have a good
company,
background.
you have a great background. You know how to juggle a lot of balls, and that's really a lot of what it is. You know, especially when you're being scrappy. So anyway, I was working with her, and there were several times I'd have to come to her with questions. I had no idea what I was doing. So, you know, what about this? What about that? And she would turn to me and she'd just say, Michelle, figure it out. Just like in a little bit of a cold tone, but also like it wasn't like Devil Wears Prada cold tone. It was like very direct, and it stung the first few times, and then I took it correctly, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah, I got this, Donna. You know,
Yes.
so yeah, it made me have the confidence to know that I could figure it out, and it also puts you in a good place where, when the business isn't doing so well, you know that the sky isn't falling because you have this ability to hustle. You have ability to figure it out. And so it gives you a lot of like grounding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Just go figure it out.
Go figure it out.
You're
You will. No, you can.
Yeah, you're going to face hard times.
Yeah.
Everybody faces hard times. And some people say that getting through an obstacle is the best thing that can ever happen to you.
Yes.
So figure it out.
Figure it out.
We're going to let you do that. Okay. I'm guessing that you are into whatever your way of self-improvement is, education or
Sure.
books or podcasts, or what are things that you lean on to kind of improve on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I'm the kind of busy right now and growing the company that I don't have a ton of time to do that, but I really love Masterclass. It sounds silly, but they have really good stuff. They've got great experts.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this one on growth mindset right now that's pretty new from them.
How do you like it?
I love it. They're like getting into KPIs and like different ways of looking at KPIs and just performance in general. And I love that. I mean, I listen to Shonda Rhimes and Judd Apatow and Ron Howard. I mean, there are just beautiful people on there that have incredible messages to give you, you know?
You know, as we're talking about that, did you feel like, as you're starting this business, running this business, do you feel like you had to catch up on any kind of business related education?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if maybe you just jumped in and it all came very naturally.
Some of it came naturally,
Yeah.
but I have to credit our former president. He came in 2020, added a lot of structure to the company, and he, you know, had an MBA, has an MBA, and is an incredible human. And so he really helped us understand business at a different level, because we were so scrappy up to that point. And so he added a lot of structure, helped us understand how to manage better, like helped me become a good manager. And so I often was going to him for advice in managing my team and understanding what the best ways to do things were.
Yeah.
So he was pivotal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great plug for mentorship. If you're running a business, if you're in a business, if you're thinking about starting a business, you don't have to necessarily go through the traditional channels. And maybe the traditional channels aren't always the best way. Like, I'm going to sign up for this class. It's going to take me 12 weeks. And find a mentor.
Yes.
Find someone who's done it and learn from that individual.
Yeah.
Take all that you can from that individual. Do you find yourself in that position now as a mentor to people?
Yeah. I do. And what's been really nice about it is there are folks who don't necessarily know their worth yet, and you have the ability to show them that. You can, but just by watching, oh, here's a person who I see really, really killing it, and they seem to want more. They seem to be hungry. And oftentimes I'll pull them in and just chat with them like, hey, what do you want your future to be? What are you looking to do? And maybe we're a little weird in this capacity, but I'm a big fan of like total honesty with people and understanding exactly what they want their future to be.
Yeah.
And if it's not at Manly Bands, that's totally okay.
Sure.
But, let's say they really want to be, a championship swimmer of some sort, great, awesome. Let's talk about changing your schedule so you can, go to the gym in the morning or something, because I want you fulfilled when you're here. I want you fulfilled outside of the office. Like, this is not, I know this is a job. I get that. And there are people who are here to work a day and, just to have a job, and that's totally fine. You need people like that. But then there are people who like want to grow, or maybe like haven't realized that they're that person that wants to grow.
Yeah.
And it is so fun to pull that person in, have that conversation, and then put them on a plan and then watch them shine. I mean, that is the coolest thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
because you're giving somebody something they may never have really gone for in their life because they just hadn't thought of it.
Yeah, they just didn't think about it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and happy people are way more productive.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to work with happy people.
Is that why you're so productive? You seem pretty happy.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. You have to keep yourself happy. Like, it's up to you too. That's the other thing. It's really easy as entrepreneurs to fall into a dark depression. Super easy. It is a whole thing. And I mean, it's a stereotype because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out what it is in the world that gives you something outside of the office. What is that thing? Is it your relationship? Is it a hobby and relationship? I mean, whatever it is, bring it in, make it happy. I was talking to one entrepreneur recently who owns an electric bike company, and he was talking about how him and his wife started the company together, but how they take bike rides still every day, that's their thing. Oh, and I was like, man,
nice.
that is awesome. Yeah. So have your thing,
Do your thing.
Do your thing that makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Do your thing. Okay. In full transparency, and you just said we have to be honest with each other. Do you have a football line of rings?
No, you know what? We don't yet. We did a baseball line years ago with MLB, but I think we didn't quite nail it. So I'd love another shot at sports in some capacity. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's on the docket to maybe do. Yeah.
I know the story about the MLB a little bit, so maybe you'll jump back into that. But,
sure.
But I was reading a post, and to be fair, I don't know when it was, and we have the Super Bowl just around the corner, and it looked like it came from you, and the end of the post was "Go Chiefs," and the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl this year. And in full transparency, I'm not cheering for the Chiefs. So if that was you, then you and I are opposed this weekend.
Okay.
So just wanted to let you know that.
I'm sorry. I was actually the water girl for the high school football team. So I
you were
no
the
football.
Bobby Boucher of your very own
Bobby Boucher.
very own high school.
Yes.
I love that. Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Atlanta at a Catholic school called St. Pius. And my dad said I needed a sport on my resume, and I am not a sports person. So I was like, I like football players. They're pretty.
Yes.
So I decided to be the water girl, which they called the manager of the team. And we would essentially launder the uniforms, put them out for the guys. I knew how to fix everything on a football uniform, like
Amazing.
helmets and random things. We had random tools and stuff. But yeah, that was my sport in high school. I had a leather jacket with a football.
Way.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks.
Lots of great nuggets about running a business, starting a business, filling a need, figuring it out, all of the good stuff. Where can people find you?
Yeah, manlybands.com.
And do you have any social media as well?
Yeah. So on Facebook, we're get Manly Bands, and then just Manly Bands everywhere else.
All right. Well, I hope you'll come back and visit us again as you continue to create more and more options. And
Thank you.
That's the one right there, the American, next on my list. Michelle Lucchese may or may not be related to the New York mob, Lucchese, but the mob line. That's
the mob
next.
line, it's next.
That's next for Manly Bands.
It's
Thank
happening.
you. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.